moment there is discretion, that is where the ability to then start allocating resources or licenses to favored individuals comes into play.
Families are getting into industry. It's not just the industrialists which are working closely with the politicians.
The problem starts with politician, businessman, bureaucracy, nexus.
The issue of corruption is back on the center stage, once again exposing the growing nexus between corporates and politicians, and also a shrill reminder of the extent of crony capitalism in the Indian system. Hello and welcome. You're with We Mean Business. I'm Shweta Rajpal-Kohli. On the show today, we ask, how badly is corruption hurting India's growth story? And can we hope for better corporate and political governance standards? Let me introduce our guests on the show. I spoke earlier with Kiran Mazumdar Shaw, CMD of Biocon from Bangalore. With me here in the Delhi studio, Pramod Bhasin, Chairman of the Skills Academy and Non-Executive VC of Genpact. Also expected here shortly is Nalin Kohli, National Executive Member of the BJP. And with me here, Neerja Chowdhury, a very well-known political analyst. Sanjay Jha, author and co-founder of HamaraCongress.com, joins us from Mumbai. And we're also hoping T.S. Krishnamurthy, former Chief Election Commissioner from Chennai, will join us shortly. But let me first start with my interview with Kiran Mazumdar Shaw on the growing nexus between corporates and politicians. Ma'am, first to your reaction to some of the recent allegations by IAC that have put the issue of corruption back on the center stage.
You know, Shweta, according to me, this whole confidence crisis that we are facing and all these allegations about corruption are really about diversion of funds. So I think diversion of funds, whether it is in business or whether it is in politics, I think is a very, very serious concern for our country, because it means we are diverting funds from development activities which are, you know, so required for growth and development. So I think this is a serious, serious crisis that we are facing, and certainly no one can argue or debate on this fact that we cannot afford to have such levels and scales of corruption and diversion of funds at that.
But the recent allegations also point to larger questions of the unholy nexus between corporates and politicians. Shouldn't corporate India be accountable to? What about the role of India Inc.?
Well, you know, personally, I believe there has to be a healthy nexus between corporate India and, you know, the political parties that govern this country. Because I think we need to play a very symbiotic role in terms of coming up with enabling policies that address growth and development. I personally know that in Karnataka, where I actually head Karnataka government's vision group on biotechnology, we have a very good format where industry, government and academicians share a forum where we are actually helping the government to come up with some very enabling, very innovative and path-breaking policies, which would have never happened if you didn't have this close interaction between the government and corporate sector as it happens in this particular case. So I don't think there's anything wrong between corporate India engaging with the government to make sure that things are done in the way that enables industry to grow and thereby growth and development to take place. When you talk about unholy nexus, these are about, you know, individual, sort of corporate favors or whatever you might call it. And I think that obviously is something that does raise concern. But I think for industry as a whole to have a good engagement with the government is very, very important.
Absolutely. In fact, the country seems to be getting very, very impatient. Corporates keep talking about reforms to revive growth, but we never see enough noise about reforms that will bring better governance.
You know, I think good governance is extremely important. I think this is an inflection point in India's history, and I think we should use this as a very important opportunity to actually bring in a set of reforms that really focus on good governance all across. And I'm fully for it. But I think what disturbs me is the kind of knee-jerk reaction, the kind of broad-based allegations, the kind of witch hunting that's going on. I think all that is very unhealthy. We need to take a total stock of what's going on. Yes, we all are aware of what has happened over decades in terms of the way this country has been governed, the way governance standards within corporate India have not been up to the mark, and so on and so forth. And I think this is a good time for all of us to say, how do we move forward? How do we make sure that governance is at a very, very good level across the board? Yes, I agree with you. I think we do need to put into place certain measures. But I think for all this to happen, we need to make sure that there is a very high level of transparency and accountability, but not of the type that we are talking about, where people are hesitant to take any decisions because of the fear of being exposed or being alleged to have, colluded with someone to do things. I think many of these cases that we are talking about today, I'm sorry to say, but my view is that everything is not fair because we are victimizing people who have done things properly.
All right, and that brings us to the role of civil society activists. It's almost become fashionable to be exposing scams right now.
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, this constant refrain of Aam Aadmi. I mean, I'm sorry to say this, but let's not forget that even Aam Aadmi has been corrupted. So you don't have an honest Aam Aadmi, so to speak. I mean, today at every level of society, we have corruption. So even the Aam Aadmi is corrupt. I mean, I know that every time you try and do anything for, slum dwellers, you realize how corrupted they've become. So it's not correct to believe that everyone who has any amount or any level of wealth or is affluent is dishonest, and everyone who's poor is honest. That's absolutely not right. And somehow civil society seems to have created this impression that poor people are honest and they are being,
Victimized.
Yeah, that, they are being victimized, and that, we are not really bothered about their plight, and that it's all these people who have got money, who are dishonest, who are, totally taking advantage of the situation. I think that kind of thinking has to go away, because any time you talk about anything, it's always about, oh, you don't have any regard for the Aam Aadmi. And I think I'm tired of this kind of constant comparison of the Aam Aadmi to an affluent person.
All right, clearly that's an interesting view coming from you, but there are many others who also feel that this transformation is much needed, even if it's at the cost of short-term pain, like you were talking about the lack of decision-making by bureaucrats. But we surely need long-term reform of institutions, and while the negative fallout is the phobia of policy paralysis, perhaps the positive outcome could be that people may start thinking twice before taking or giving or paying a bribe. Do you see that really happening?
Shweta, I think it's a bit too idealistic to believe that corruption is just going to go away. I can tell you there is enough bribes being paid right now. I mean, people are not scared to take bribes even now. Even they demand bribes shamelessly even now, even though all this is going on. Okay, let me give you an example, okay? We have built 500 houses in North Karnataka for the flood victims. These houses have been lying empty just because the person in charge has not allocated these houses to the families who need to occupy them. Now, don't you think that really sort of speaks about some corruption going on there? Because obviously the families who want to move in there are required to pay something to that government official to move into those houses. What is government doing about this? We have asked the government, why aren't these people occupying these houses? We have spent so much money building these houses, okay? And if you don't allow families to occupy these houses, I think it's a waste of resources. So look at the corruption that lies everywhere. Now, even in those houses, we know that there are sects who are fighting each other saying, we don't want such and such a caste to occupy these houses, we want some other caste to occupy it. I mean, it's really a very, very difficult situation we are all in, you know.
India's #1 news app just got even better. Download NDTV's new app. Fully optimized for retina display. Full screen view. Faster response time. And Sudoku. NDTV's new iPad app. Download now.